Gloria Borger, Tom Countryman, Elise Labott. He will regret it. He will regret it fast. Gloria, what does that mean?
Look, this is a president who is tripling down. Yesterday he was doubling down. I think today you could easily say he is tripling down. And what's not clear to me, he said, is if he utters one form of an overt threat and then went on and said, and threatens Guam, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he already has been threatening. Kim has been uttering overt threats.
The specifics of the Guam attack, they're out there.
Right, they're already out there.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure. I was trying to parse those words. I'm not quite sure what he means by that. But he reiterated a lot of what he said yesterday, Brooke, which is that tens of millions of people are applauding him, that there's finally somebody to stand up for America. And he also said if somebody else had uttered the words that I said, they would have been applauded. But because, you know, the inference is, but because it came from Donald Trump, he's being criticized.
Listen, I know that the White House, Elise, is saying that there are no mixed messages. We're all on the same page. Tillerson, Mattis, Trump. But again, you have this, you know, Gloria's right, this tripling down, and yet you have what you were hearing, you know, what you were just reporting, that the back channels and the let's bring them to the table and try diplomacy. How do you square those?
Okay, I think, you know, as Gloria said, we need to really parse out what the president said. And I think what he was saying, he kind of stopped himself. He said if he even threatens, and then he kind of said overt threat. Right. Now, if you saw kind of over the last 2 days, Secretary Tillerson, especially Defense Secretary Mattis, have been kind of clarifying what that means. And that means if you threaten with actual force, if you take action. North Korea has been threatening the U.S. and its allies for years. I mean, if we listen to every, you know, threat by North Korea, I mean, we wouldn't be able to go on with our lives. They are masters at brinkmanship, at rhetoric, and sometimes you just need to kind of put that aside. And when we say listen to the president, look at what the president does, don't listen to his tweets, I think you need to do that with North Korea. But so he's saying if you take action, and that message is to North Korea, and it's also to China, that to China and Russia, you need to get this under control. You need to put your pressure on North Korea. And to North Korea, the message is, if you're thinking about it, don't do it, because we will annihilate you. We have the defenses. We have the capability. You will not survive an attack on the U.S. or its allies. But I have to say, it's working, Brooke, because you know, if you look at North Korea, if you parse out North Korea's statements a couple of days ago, he was very specific. The North Korean news agency was very specific about 4 missiles directed at Guam. Today, you're hearing the kind of typical bombast that you hear from North Korea, that the U.S. will go up in a sea of fire. It's kind of the things that we hear all the time. So I'm not trying to make light of the fact that it's a very serious situation. There is a chance for miscalculation here, but I do think that this kind of serious threat of force, Kim Jong-un is cowering a bit. And, you know, look, the masters of brinkmanship, Kim Jong-un, may have met their match in Donald Trump, and he seems to be cowering a bit.
What about the comment that the question asked about, you know, the U.S.'s good friend in Germany and the Chancellor Angela Merkel saying that there is no military solution? Tom, going to you and your years there in Foggy Bottom, like, you know, the president was essentially saying, we'll let Merkel speak for Germany. Certainly she's not speaking for the U.S. What did you make of that?
I think that Chancellor Merkel's statement was pretty clear, that there is not a military solution that the United States could impose upon North Korea that would reliably destroy the nuclear arsenal of North Korea. And that's not just speaking for Germany. I am sure that she intended for our president to listen to that statement as well. I understand the impulse to reply to a thug like Kim Jong-un with the same kind of intemperate language that he uses. But the fact is, no American president has ever done that before. I think that the president may succeed, I hope, as Elise says, in getting North Korea to back off some of its rhetoric. But the fact is, North Korea does not intend to initiate an all-out conflict with the United States. The president will take credit, have no doubt, if they never make a military move. But it is not credible to believe that the president's words are going to convince North Korea to halt its nuclear program.
Okay. Well, Gloria, the president, though, in terms of Tom's talking about the rhetoric, the president defended his rhetoric and, said if any other president did the same thing, they would be praised. Is he right?
No, I don't think he is. I think that that the kind of bellicose, apocalyptic language coming from a president is a little jarring, and he may be right that there are an awful lot of people applauding it. But on the other hand, I think what you want to hear from a president in this particular case with North Korea is you want to isolate North Korea and say the entire civilized world voted against you at the United Nations, and we led that fight. And Trump has reason to crow about that, and he should, and not make it a fight about our fire and fury against your fire and fury, but rather a fight between the civilized world and Kim Jong-un. Mm-hmm. And instead, what you hear is this kind of mano a mano, we have more armaments than you have. And by the way, I think the language that you hear from General Mattis, for example, is so strikingly different. And this is the man who's in charge of all the armaments, right? And the Secretary of Defense last night was so sober and somber about all of this and talked about a diplomatic solution, and very different from the president. So while you don't want the president to not, stand up for America, criticize North Korea, et cetera, ratcheting up an already tense situation is kind of questionable. And, maybe the ends will justify the means. We'll have to see.
Sure. Everyone stand by. We have a correspondent in Guam. We've been talking about Guam and the specific attacks from Pyongyang to this American territory, just about 2,100 miles off of the